So the time has come. We have finally folded and created a bunny build. It's about that time that I finally get her, and as you probably expected, I wanted to perfect a build, in which I actually did. The great thing about Bunny is, well, she is the by far best character in the game by quite a large margin, being able to farm every bit of content with no competition, and even from a bossing perspective, as you've probably seen in this intro, you can even just use her skills to kill everything. It's really balanced. She's a necessary descendant that every single person should have in their arsenal and possibly be using. Let me show you my perfected bunny build. Alright, so now we are on the build section and we're going to quickly go over what Bunny does. I'm sure everyone knows what she does, but I do this in every video. First things first, we have Rabbit's Foot. What Rabbit's Foot does is as you move, you will get more electricity buildup. This is what gives you the ability to cast some of your abilities, and it will continue to grow as you continue to move. If you stop moving, you will eventually lose it. So generally speaking, you need to keep moving with Bunny. On top of that is one of the more broken abilities, because what this does is if you press the spacebar 2 times, you will deal a burst of AoE damage. It costs no mana and it has no cooldown. The only Descendant in the entire game that has an ability like this, so really balanced. Next, we have Throw Bomb. This is a useless skill no one uses, but what it does is you activate it, you do electricity, it consumes some of your electricity for no reason. So move on. We use Speed of Light. Speed of Light will make you run fast and generate a ton of electricity. This is the primary way to build up electricity. Just for note, you don't necessarily even need to use this ability to get electricity, as this passive will just do it for passively moving. So just note that. The main reason why you want to do this though is because you want to use lightning emission. This is also the highest damage dealing skill in the entire game by quite a large margin, higher than Blair's, higher than Kyle's. And what this does is whenever you activate electricity, this will basically make you do a bunch of damage. And as you can see, by simply pressing the V, I get the ability to do quite a bit of damage for doing almost nothing. This ability is by far the most strongest high damage dealing AoE skills that require you not even to look at the target. It's very balanced. And if you actually use your skills with it, you actually end up doing a ton of damage proportional to your speed, and it's a really very balanced skill that you should be using, because you can kill bosses with this, which is absolutely crazy, and it doesn't cost mana. Like, you can use your mana to get it faster, but it doesn't cost mana. As you can see, you can keep using it as long as you're moving still, so it's really good. Next, you have Maximum Power. What this does is you just shoot a beam of electricity. Beams in this game is not very good, but also you can just use your lightning emissions and just deal way more damage for very little cost. Generally speaking, no one really uses this power. You just press these 2 buttons and you run. For the most part, you can use this. Actually, I sometimes use it for extra damage, but for the most part, you're just using these 2 skills. That is all for the basics of Bunny. Let's move on to the modules, but before we do that, quickly check this out. Now, while Bunny is by far the best investment in the first Descendant, investing in yourself is an even better investment. And that's where today's sponsor, Boot.dev, come into play. Boot.dev is by far the best platform to learn back-end web development. If you know anything about me, I originally planned to get into game development early on and ran into one pretty big problem, and that is boredom. The programs that I tried were quite the drag and not very engaging. Unfortunately, I didn't have something like Boot.dev, which takes a much different approach by making learning fun and rewarding. As you complete various coding assignments, you'll earn XP, unlock achievements, and progress on your journey to become a back-end developer. With Boot.dev, you get hands-on practical coding experience from the very beginning. In my opinion, the best way to learn how to do anything is to dive right on in, and that's the same with coding. And you'll actually be writing code and building projects in Python and Go. Not only will you be helping and shaping the web, but you'll also have potential to earn some serious money. The median salary for back-end web developers in 2023 was well over 150,000 USD, which is actually pretty life-changing money. So if you're looking to make a career change or level up your skills, right now is the perfect time to get started with Boot.dev. Click the link in the description box and use my code Fervor Gaming to get 25% off your first month, or even your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Now, we have 2 separate builds. We have a mobbing build and a bossing build. I'm going to quickly go over both of them. And yes, we have ultra catted her quite a bit, so she is super hyper invested. I will have this so you guys can see it. This is my subscribe tab. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. But these are my polarities, or my socket, sorry. So you can copy that, take a screenshot or whatever if you want to do this build. There you go. But yeah, let's quickly go over the skills. So high voltage is our Transcendent mod we're using. What this does is it reduces the amount of enemies that can be struck by your throw bomb and your lightning emission skill. These 2 skills here. but you get a ton of extra range and tons of extra damage. Seeing that the skill inherently does a lot of damage and it does a lot of fast damage, the negatives are literally not negatives. They don't really even do anything. It's unnoticeable basically. So it's actually a really good trade-off. You just basically get a bunch of free damage. For using kicking, you don't have to use kicking. You can use whatever you want here. But I use kicking. I know a lot of people like to use the one where you can like grapple to anything, mid-air grappling. It'd probably be better for the bossing build if I'm being honest, but use whatever you want. For these 4 slots, we're just using basically crit. You have crit hit damage here, skill insight for crit hit rate. We're using front lines for crit hit damage and crit hit rate, and we're using emergency measure for pretty much the same thing, crit hit rate and crit hit damage. Quickly, Bunny has a base crit multi of 10, and whenever you get all of this, you're going to get an additional 20 because it's a base multiplier for her base, and that'll give you 30% crit, so about 1 in 3, a little over 1 in 3 attacks will crit, and you'll get a ton of damage, and it's a 4.4 crit multi, so it's really good. Next, we're using MP Collector. You need this, it is absolutely mandatory. The thing is, when you're playing in the game, like, no one can kill things before you. You will kill everything before any like person can get their abilities off and their skills off, so you get to always have all the mana you need, and that's like one of the best things about being her. She's so OP, she just makes everyone not be able to play, so it's great. Then you have focus on electric. This is going to give you skill cooldown, and you're going to get a ton of electric power. You need the cooldown. I actually think you need just a little bit of cooldown. Like this one and this one is actually good enough for the mobbing build, so that you'll have it up by the time your lightning emissions is off cooldown, basically. So that's why I use it in the mobbing build. But these two works really well. Use skill expansion for range, so you can hit things. And then we use maximized range because you only lose 20% power modifier, but as you can probably see, I do millions of damage, so it doesn't really matter. The damage is negligible, but being able to hit everything is super good. Then we like to build HP. I know this one's very foreign for bunny players, but we like to have a little bit of HP so we don't die. Alright, so that was the mobbing build. Let's go over to the bossing build, and it's essentially about the same, but with some few changes. First off, we're still using the skill stuff. Everything is still here. We still use to focus on electric, but the difference is we're going to be using dangerous ambush in place of the HP. What this does is whenever you're not being specifically targeted, you'll deal extra damage. So this is one of the few ways to actually get more damage in the game. There's not actually that many. And then whenever you're doing this against an enemy that's immobilized, you actually get a pretty significant increase in damage. And that's why you'll saw in the intro, I was able to kill the Devourer. Not like he's that high of a measure of a boss to kill. But still, whenever he was down, I was able to do a chunk of damage, and that was because of this. So it's really, really good. Next, we have skill expansion, same thing, increase HP. The difference is we're adding these two. Now, I will say these two are a little bit more customizable in how I typically will do this. And this is going to be dependent on how careful you are as a player. So that's really important. But I do usually keep spear and shield in because the power modifier is good and the defense is good. But sometimes I will swap this focus on singular out for increased defense. And this is going to be for those of you who want a little bit more safety on your fights, that you probably should if you're a little bit newer to the fight or whatever the case is. You could go with something like this. And if it's like this, you're going to have 25,000, almost 26,000 defense. And then you'll have 7,500 HP and almost 900 shield. And that'll be almost a standard, because the standard is usually 10k HP, 25,000 defense, right? That's the standard. You kind of reach that a little bit. It's you have more defense but less HP, but overall collectively you're about there. Otherwise, if you don't want to use this, you can just go back to the focus on singular, and this will give you a pretty sizable damage increase, in my opinion, because that's quite a bit of singular damage. But yeah, this is how I would build the bossing build, and that's what I pretty much use most of the time. I use this setup most of the time because I'm careful enough. I've been playing for a long time. But again, just kind of build it how you want to do it. For our reactors, I do want to go over both the mobbing and the bossing reactor. So this is the bossing reactor, and this one has Thundercage mounting. That's not that important. I don't typically like using the Thundercage. I would ideal a Enduring Legacy version, but whatever. We have it. And this one has electric and singular, and then it has crit hit damage and additional attack when hitting a Colossus. That is actually pretty important. That's a significant damage increase. You want to max out this, and then you want to make sure that you have the mounting, because that's going to make it so you can actually deal damage with your skills and not even have to shoot. A lot of times, outside of maybe Gluttony and one other boss, I think Swamp Walker, using my skills is actually viable to kill every single one of them without even shooting a bullet. for our external components, we're using Slayer. Now, I know a lot of players like to use the, what's it called? The electric set, whatever, the electric supernova. You can use that, like, use whatever works for you, supernova or Slayer. I like Slayer because I don't, like, overuse mana. I know some players like to use, like, the one that gives you extra damage but less mana. It's, like, not that much more damage, and you lose quite a bit of mana, and I like having mana to be able to, you know, use my skills. But anyway, I like to use Slayer. It will drain more mana, but it'll give you more damage. And the damage, once again, is actually noticeable from my perspective. I actually am able to, like, kill things better. This one has MP recovery out of combat. That's actually pretty good. And max HP, once again, is actually pretty nice because she is very squish. Having that HP is really good. So this one is a decent one I would actually go with. For the sensor, we're using consumable drop rate because we don't have anything better. And we have max MP. Max MP is pretty important. If we can get, like, shield recovery or some type of recovery in combat, like mana, that could work. Or maybe this one has mana. No, it doesn't have mana. So this one could be like mana recovery in combat plus max MP. So that could be really good. And then we have Slayer memory. We're going to have shield recovery in combat. It's not the best, but it's fine. And then we have defense because we really want that defense. Ideally, we can get a legendary defense here for a little bit of extra defense, but whatever, we're doing good. Then finally, we have the processor, and this is going to give us toxin resistance. Ideally, we want shield on that if we can. And then we have max HP and then shield recovery modifier. And with those, you'll have a decent amount of shield sustain, and you'll be pretty defensive, so you don't die all over the place. And that'll be really, really nice. I don't typically show my weapons because they're not really relevant for her, but I'll show my Thundercage. Those are the stats on it. Ideally, you want to get, like, if you're using this as a bossing build, bonus damage to, like, bosses or something maybe works there. Quickly going over the mobbing build, rifling reinforcement, action and reaction, better concentration, better insight, expanded weapon charge, concentration priority, sweeping squad, weak point sight, electric enhancement, and fire rate up. The bossing build, pretty much the same thing. The difference is we put weak point detection, you can put have aiming, and then I put short precision shot, you can put firing fiesta here. And there you have it. That is my perfected ultimate bunny build. This has been a long time coming. I really don't like very overtuned characters in general, and obviously Bunny is by far the most OP character in the game by quite a large margin. With that said, after playing her and leveling her, because it took me like 2 days to do it, because she's so good at farming, I am slightly ruined because she just makes everything so much easier. It's pretty insane. She's the Descendant worth building. I stand firm that she's the best Descendant in the game. But yeah, she's really definitely worth building if you're looking for a reliable farming Descendant. So yeah, pick her up. Hopefully you like the build. With that said, let me know down in the comments what you guys like to see next. I have plenty of katas and pretty much every Descendant almost fully energy activated, so I can build whatever you want to see. Let me know down in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video very soon. Later.